On New Year's Eve, a grandmother discovered her daughter and family had been murdered, sparking one of the largest investigations in Japan's history. The murderers seemingly spent time in their home, and despite leaving behind numerous pieces of physical evidence, they are still at large. Today, we investigate the faceless culprit behind the Setagaya Family Murders. This is Red Web. Welcome back, Task Force, to the last episode this year of Red Web, the podcast all about unsolved mysteries, true crime, and the supernatural. I am your resident mystery enthusiast, Trevor Collins, and joining me, hearing about this case for the very first time, Alfredo Diaz. Whoa, it's NCIS in here.
Dude, yep.
The sunglasses fall onto his face.
Miami, baby. You have to do it at least once, you know what I'm saying? They're solving crimes and mysteries and drama, and so are we. I don't know what network they're on. What are they on? TNT? Maybe, because they know drama.
They know drama, dude. They invented it.
Yeah. Here we go. This seems like an unfortunate run-of-the-mill murder. The interesting thing that you said and talked about was that the murderer spent some time in their home. Mm-hmm. So I'm interested to see like how much time and what clues are left behind. Because in my head, if I'm the one in a house that I'm not supposed to be, not that I would ever be, that's just terrifying to me. That's supposed to be the one that's terrifying. I feel like every second would be a danger to myself to give myself up in some way, shape, or form. You know? A DNA trail or something. I don't know what's going on. You know, what kind of new technology they're going to have.
Right. Dude, if I'm playing capture the flag every second I'm across the line, I'm anxious.
Yeah.
I'm a defense guy because I can't be out of place. I couldn't do something like this. I mean, you know that kind of terror though, because you've had, we talked about it on the show, someone in your residence before. This was many years ago.
Oh yeah. My apartment. Yeah.
But like, yeah, there's something very strange about an individual, in this case, a murderer, living or staying for a prolonged period of time in the scene of the crime. We talked about that in the Hinterkaifeck murders a little bit. So yeah, we'll talk about why they think this happened. There's, like I said, copious amounts of evidence left behind.
Wild.
And yet unsolved.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, you know, and it's just one of those things where as much as we have technology or these different ways of doing things in terms of like trying to solve the mystery and figure stuff out, at the end of the day, there's still a little bit of luck involved with it, you know?
Right. Finding the right crack in the case,
right.
Finding the right connection,
yep.
And also a proper investigation, which I will kind of peel back the veil a little bit. Because of the hyper focus on a few things in this one, there is a cloud around it that I think allowed the culprit to maybe themselves be the lucky ones and skirt by.
Oh, man.
And we'll get into all of that.
You hate when it's just like, I don't know, everything else is getting in the way except for the actual crime itself.
Mm-hmm.
Or the person that's committing the crime. But big episode because this is the last episode of the year, last episode of 2024.
It is.
The holiday season is upon us, so we have no new episodes for the next 2 weeks, but we do have daily content dropping on the Patreon this month, all month long. We've got old favorites to our ad-free Patreon feed, as well as 2 new movie club episodes. Boy, are they good.
Juicy ones.
We got Final Destination. We've referenced that movie a million times on this show.
Yep.
And we got your favorite Christmas time movie, Krampus.
Everyone's favorite Austrian grandmother story of Krampus.
Krampus.
You know, we reached deep down those stockings that are actually just an athletic stock stuck above the fire and found these this lovely crumb of Krampus. So yeah, like Fredo said, lots of old favorites coming to the ad-free feed at Patreon. You can get there easily now by going to redwebpod.com. Makes it super easy. And it is the best way to support us. 2024 saw us go independent, and it is because of our Patreon and our merch and our ad sales that we are able to be independent and keep doing this amazing and fun show. So thank you all so much. redwebpod.com, as well as store.redwebpod.com. That's where the merch is found. Ooh. And you can give a gift of Patreon membership as well. You know, the holidays are here, and so be sure to get all that stuff going now, whether it be merch or the gift of Patreon before the holidays are around. You got to get all that shipping planned out. And with that, I want to give a big holiday shout out, a long list to, I don't know if this is the naughty or nice list, but for us, quite nice. Shout out to our Patreon members, Buff Minds and Squonks. We have Iku, Kristen Darley, Old Thomas Langdock, Xavier, TJYK94, Azrael, Gavin Day, Zachary Orr, and Heather Stahlcup. Just to name a few, thank you guys so much for your direct support. And with that, Fredo, it's time to take you back in time all the way to the year 2000. It's New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2000. Haruko, whose last name is not public, called her daughter, Yasuko Miyazawa. Now, she did this on most days. This was a nice habit that she had with her daughter, but on this day, her daughter did not pick up. Though some sources claim that the line was down, perhaps cut or just off, which would mean that the call wouldn't have even gone through. It's also worth noting that New Year's is an important holiday in Japan, very similar to Thanksgiving or Christmas here in the United States, very family-centric, and lots of businesses shut down. Yasuko, who was 41, lived in the duplex next door to her mother, along with her husband Mikio, who was 44, her daughter Nina, who was 8, and her son Rei, who was 6. They all lived in a special ward of Tokyo, Japan called Setagaya. Now, being in the same duplex, Haruko decided to walk over and check on her daughter directly, and this would have been around 10:40 a.m. When she arrived, no one answered the door, so she let herself in. Now, initially, when thinking back on her steps, this is her recounting the story perhaps to investigators later, she recounts having unlocked the door to go inside, but the longer that time went on, the more she began to doubt her own memory, believing that the door may have actually been unlocked already, a dark sign of things perhaps to come. Now inside, she stepped to the foot of the staircase where she saw Mikio on the ground covered with wounds that we eventually learn are specifically stab wounds. From this, she runs upstairs in terror to then find the children. Yasuko and Nina had similar injuries. Rei's body was still in bed, though it appeared that he had been strangled, not stabbed. When the Metropolitan Police arrived from the Seijō station, they found a great deal of evidence. But before we dive into all of that, Fredo, I know that you're kind of our vessel for the audience. There's a lot to unpack here. Where's your mind at just kind of reacting to this scene?
It's just absolutely terrifying because of the fact of like you're coming home with your family. Then sure, the door's unlocked. Hell no. You know what I mean? But if you already have family members at home, one, you're probably not going to think that, oh, intruder, right? You're probably thinking just like, oh, the door is unlocked. But to come home to that site and it's just, man, how do you even, there's already damage done that can't be undone. You're unguarded because you're not walking into your home. You know what I mean? Like pistols up, knives ready, or anything like that. You're just casually walking to your home. So once you walk into a scene like that, like you're completely ambushed and completely taken back.
Yeah.
So it is terrifying because this is something. It's not like, oh, we're talking about a cryptid or, oh, we're talking about the Bermuda Triangle or some wild heist. Like this is a home invasion.
Right. This is the scariest animal, human.
Yeah. Human.
And they could be anywhere in this house.
Exactly.
Now you're keying in on something I kind of wanted to talk about because it is a little bit of foreshadowing of things to come. Haruko coming next door. Remember, this is the grandmother figure of this family. She lives next door in the duplex. She shares a wall, but I guess she hears nothing, just to get ahead of all that kind of confusion. She hears nothing of a scuffle, nothing happened in the night. So when she's going over, it's business as usual. Oh, phone might be down, or oh, my daughter didn't answer, so let me go check. But the fact that the door was either locked or unlocked and she no longer is confident in her memory of either way is something that creates that fog around this case. And we'll see that happen a couple more times. And I think that unfortunately, not that it's her fault whatsoever, but it just highlights how easy it is for, despite the evidence, for someone to slip away. And that's one of the things that's most frustrating about any given true crime case. We talk about this all the time, but especially here, because I really want to have you thinking about that as I start to lay out just the gravity of physical evidence that's left behind. So with that, we're talking about the Metropolitan Police. They're here now from the local neighborhood police station, and they quickly discover the murder weapons that were left in the kitchen. 2 sashimi knives were covered in blood, one was bent and the other was broken off at the handle. And this is where the evidence actually starts to get quite strange. Throughout the home, police found 4 consumed empty paper cups of ice cream, and strangely, the killer seemed to rip the cups up, biting into them rather than using a utensil of some kind. just a peculiar habit, perhaps.
Okay, weird, yeah.
Very weird. Now, further evidence that the suspect had been eating at the scene of the crime came in the form of 4 empty bottles of tea and a melon, of all things. What stood out to me when reading about this is the number 4. In Japan, it's considered unlucky due to its pronunciation. Christian, I believe it's shi,
Yes.
which means death. And I was wondering if there was any sort of level of symbology here, or if it had anything to do with the fact that there were 4 family members here, because I just couldn't find any underlying meaning behind the 4 cups of ice cream, the melon, and 4 bottles of tea. It just seems like a really eclectic assortment of things to bring, but it's also a high level of comfort one must have to sit there before or after the crime and just be munching down.
Yeah, that's the terrifying part. And the whole 4s and 4s, maybe just a little like OCD in play.
It could be. It could be some sort of, again, this idea of compulsive habits or just peculiar habits. It definitely helps build an idea of who this person might be. Now, they continued to investigate the home, and the window of the second floor bathroom was open and its screen was on the ground outside. This led police to theorize that this is how the killer got into the house, but we'll talk more about this particular detail later after some more of the evidence comes to light. Now, in one of the bathrooms, this is where things start to get very strange, the murderer left feces unflushed in one of the toilets.
I mean, maybe it's just my understanding, but is that just full of DNA?
It's just chock full of DNA. It's just a log of DNA. Now, we are in the year 2000, and I will talk about this soon, but this is a little bit before the police had DNA records or like a database of DNA. And so we're not far from being able to analyze it, but it's not necessarily a strong tool yet.
Is the play there to grab it and put it in a bag and store it away? Because then, I mean, years from now, you might be able to rip that DNA out of there, and when there still be traces of DNA in old poop.
100%. I mean, maybe this is some sort of weird fetish stuff where this guy's like, I want them to grab my poop. I want it to be bagged and tagged.
Oh my God.
I don't know, man.
Also, it's like, I get it. The police station doesn't want to have a storage of poop bags, you know what I mean? But even one you don't want to have.
No. One is too many. But in addition to this, the killer left several personal effects. A raglan sweater, a fanny pack specifically to wear around the waist, a jacket, a hat, scarf, gloves, and handkerchief with some traces of a cologne called Dracar Noir was found on this handkerchief. And we do have an image of all of these items put together on a nondescript person for you, Fredo, so you can kind of get an idea of what this person might have looked like given all of this on their person. That way witnesses would be able to compare this if they had seen somebody in the area.
All right. Image A.
Image A. Task Force, this will be in the YouTube upload as well as our socials.
This dude look like he is, dude, he's dressed like, it just reminds me of, like, this is what a K-pop star dresses like when he's not performing. It's just cash, a little stylish.
Trying to stay anonymous.
A little anonymous.
It's a little drippy, I'll be honest.
Puffy jacket, long sleeves. It's got some matching colors, the hat. And so, I mean, like, this person's stylish. This is weird. It's weirdly stylish. Like, this is, like, I don't know, someone's like mood fashion board outfit or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that.
It's got a scarf, a nice navy puffy jacket, white, like real white shoes. Yeah, man, he's like color coded and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the shoes and the pants were not things left behind, but this is an extrapolation of what it would have looked like given all of these items.
Yeah.
But you're right, the jacket, hat, things were all left behind. And it's a wild amount of clothes left behind too. So this person's clearly feeling comfortable. We're talking about the door being unlocked or locked. And again, that's a fuzzy detail. But to me, the fact that this person's eating, the fact that the door might have been unlocked, the fact that there doesn't seem to be an obvious break-in point and clothes are taken off. I'm like, was this somebody that they knew? Did they let this person in and let their guard down?
Yeah. And I forgot what the statistic is, right? But like when there's like a murder case, it's always like, look at the family first. The statistic is surprisingly high for it being someone that is related to the person, and then even higher for someone that knows the person.
That's interesting. Christian, I'm curious if you could round that number up. I'd be very curious if we can like kind of get a quick search on that. But while Christian looks that up, moving further into the evidence, it seems that this killer took some of the Miyazawa's money, but left some of it behind. So again, a very curious sight. Investigators found around 250,000 yen was still at the house, but according to some accounting, right, and this is coming from the Mainichi Shimbun, the killer made off with about 200,000 yen. And all of this money came from tuition fees earned from Yasuko's cram school. So I don't know if it's that they wanted specifically the tuition fees back, if this was perhaps a student of this cram school, or if they just didn't see the rest of the money, but all in, it means they took just shy of like half the money.
Yeah, because we've had cases where they didn't take any valuables, and so it's like, oh, okay, this is clearly most likely like crime of passion, or there's some kind of like emotional tie here.
Right.
This is like, man, when you take the money and the valuables, then it just opens it up a little bit, where it's like, is it just a straight home invasion?
Yeah.
Is a burglary gone wrong or something? Yeah, because then at that point, it could be anybody, as opposed to like, it's close, it's someone that knows them.
Yeah, 100%, especially when they're taking a relatively large amount, and I think in USD that would be a couple grand. And but then they're leaving a large sum behind. So was it not their priority? Was it that they wanted specifically Yasuko's money because there was something personal between them? Again, I feel like we're starting to be able to get inside the killer's head a little bit and maybe develop some sort of MO and maybe a profile. But I'll tell you right now, it doesn't come to fruition in the suspects. Like I said, it's a cold case.
Yeah.
Before you move on to Alfredo's question or Alfredo's point, it looks like it depends on the year. According to the Uniform Crime Reporting Program of the FBI, in 2011, 24.8% of murder victims were killed by family members, compared to 44.1% where the relationship was unknown. But then in 2015, for example, looks like just about 29% of murder victims were killed by someone other than family members. 12.8% were by family members.
Oh.
Huh.
So it looks like it depends on the year, but it's a surprisingly high number.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
that is very wild.
That's pretty wild that we have some years where it's like, yeah, roughly 25-30% of family members. It's like, damn.
Well, I mean, like, there's a lot of relationship there, and it takes a lot of passion to choke somebody out, like in this case, or to have a crime where you're multiple stab wounds on multiple people. That takes a lot of intention, right? We talked about that with the I-70 Strangler recently. To do something like that, you have to be either extraordinarily emotional or extraordinarily sadistic or somewhere in between, because that's not something you just do like pulling a trigger, right? And it's like, oh gosh, I regret this instantly. You're moving through a lot of violence for a large period of time, relatively.
Yeah.
And so to me, just looking at this case so far, it does feel like there's some sort of relationship here, that there is at least some sort of characteristics we can build on, from style to personality to maybe some relationships. But again, all that does is make it more frustrating when this person seemingly disappeared. Now, in addition to all these things left behind, the last piece of major evidence comes from many of the drawers in the house. They had been opened, rummaged through. Newspapers and work documents belonging to Mikio and Yasuko were cut up, according to the NHK, the Japan Broadcasting Corporation. So Mikio worked for a marketing company, and Yasuko ran a franchised cram school. Some of these documents were actually found in a filled with water bathtub on the second floor. So it seemed that the killer had brought them upstairs. And again, they're doing some very peculiar things, leaving some of this behind, taking some of it with them. Haruko told police that one of these drawers was actually placed specifically on top of Mikio's body. And that's when she moved it to discover the wounds, because Mikio was the first person she saw. And so it's really a strange scene, and this is where I want to move kind of an hour later in time to the investigation.
Man, it seems like the villain of this story was creepily comfortable with their surrounding, and I don't know if that speaks to being someone they know or someone that's been there before.
Mm-hmm.
But dude, I mean, to be able to do something like this, you're already in the wrong state of mind,
Right.
So it's not surprising, but also surprising at the same time that they're just so comfortable.
It is just an extraordinarily, like I keep saying, an extraordinarily strange scene. And that level of comfort permeates every facet of it. It's a very uncomfortable case to kind of explore because it's, again, like Hinterkaifeck. It's such a vivid idea. You get such a vivid idea of who this person is, but they're a ghost.
Yeah.
There's something weird about that, very uncanny. So investigators determined that the murder must have occurred sometime the night prior. They determined somewhere between 11:30 p.m. and 12:15 a.m. These estimations very fascinatingly come from analyzing the partially digested food found in the family's stomachs during the autopsies. In fact, their food was different from what was discovered in the feces left behind at the scene of the crime, which itself contained beans and sesame seeds. But I love that. I love that tangible analysis to be able to figure out the timeline. I know you love that tangible stuff.
Yeah, even if it's tangible poop.
Someone had to go forking through it.
Someone, that's the job.
Mm-hmm. And so that's how they were able to determine, nope, this wasn't a family member caught on the toilet who had to then run, or, it paints a more vivid picture and gives more confidence to the things left behind. Because otherwise you could say, well, maybe that was a family member that did that. Maybe the clothes that were left behind were also a family member. But, upon further analysis, they're able to figure these things out. Now, despite all this physical evidence, the house and how it was left led to more questions than answers. So let's build the scene with a little bit more detail. The first floor was primarily an office with a storeroom in the back. All other rooms were on the second floor, plus they had a small attic or loft on that third floor. There was no blood found on the front doorway, so it was ruled by investigators out as a possible exit point for the killer. This leads us back now to the second floor window. We talked about it being open, the screen on the ground. Now, while we talked about this being an entry point, police began to suspect the killer exited the home from this point as well, given the lack of evidence elsewhere. They even tested the window for clothing fibers from the suspect climbing in or out, but found nothing. We do have an image of the side of the house. Remember, this is the second floor we're aiming at, but you can see just how small those windows are. And so it's fascinating to test for those clothing fibers because whoever it is would have to squeak through there, at least one direction. That's that image B if you want to give it a look.
Yeah, it's pretty high up there. But I mean, the fence looks close enough.
Mm-hmm.
So you can use it. Yeah, I mean, the fence is pretty close. Like, you could definitely scale that. And there's some piping between the two smaller windows. But yeah, I mean, it's a 3-story home. The first story doesn't really have like a window, maybe down at the far end.
Yeah.
And the second floor has like 3 windows, 2 which are together on the left side. Then that looks like it on the back, there maybe like a balcony. Or is that another window? Like right between the trees. But and then there's like the roof access, and there's like I guess like a garage roof on the far right that you could see like a little bit of a lip there, so that might be another way to get through.
Yeah, it seems like a relatively difficult spot, but not impossible, to your point. Like you could definitely scramble your way up there. Certainly was at least an exit point, because either way, police were able to find footprints similar to the killer's directly below the window outside, indicating that they likely used it again, either as an entrance or an exit or what have you.
Yeah, and then you said that they had to go through to get some evidence. I think it's possible. Yeah, you could scale that. It's the fence, man. It's the fence that allows you to be able to scale that. That's the thing.
Right.
Because you can get on the pipe there. And I mean, there is like a circuit box, which I don't know how much weight that can hold, but I mean, there's effort there. If anything, you put just slight weight on it. Oh man, a little terrifying.
Yeah.
A little terrifying because like you wouldn't think to lock those windows, but for that to be an entry point, you think someone would come through the front door, back door, garage or something like that, but not through a window, man, because they scaled the side of the damn building.
Yeah, that's spooky, especially something that it's one of those private windows, so it's not a full one, it's up higher, you know what I'm saying? So it's not something that you look out, but it lets light in.
Yeah.
This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Marvel Snap. Task Force, I know you know Fredo is obsessed with this game. He is world class when it comes to playing this game, but of course now I'm hooked. I've got it downloaded. It is super fun. And now that I'm super into Marvel because I'm reading all these different comics, I'm familiar with all the different characters. There's super quick matches. I love the strategy. And of course, I love seeing my Marvel characters in action. It's been a super fun way to kind of disconnect from the world every now and then when I just want to game and have a good time. And if you don't know what Marvel Snap is, here's a crash course. It's an award-winning collectible card game that combines deep strategy and a unique snapping mechanic with thousands of amazing card art variants featuring all the different Marvel characters you might know and love. Each match lasts just 3 minutes, and the simple goal is to win. Win 2 out of the 3 locations and you declare victory and you're on to the next match. There's 80 unique locations, 270 plus cards, more than 2,000 art variants. So if you're a lover of fine art and comic art and you want to see all these different variants of your favorite characters, they got it right there for you. Every game's going to feel fresh because of that. And you also have different play styles. And if you feel very confident about what you're doing in the game, you can double down and your opponent can see that. And so you can kind of bluff your thing. I've seen Fredo do this. He's super confident because he knows his play style. It's like an art just to watch him play. Now, Marvel Snap is also getting updated regularly. They have new cards every single week and monthly seasons to keep things excited. So, Task Force, download the Marvel Snap, now available on the App Store, Google Play, and Steam, or visit marvelsnap.com to learn more. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Aura Frames. Finding the perfect gift can be so tough. It has to be personal, but not over the top, not too expensive, but just right, that tickles the heartstrings. And this year, Aura Digital Picture Frames made the decision so much easier. They are named #1 by Wirecutter. Aura Frames make it incredibly easy to share unlimited photos and videos straight from your phone right to the frame. I love it. And I love that you can preload it with pictures and even include thoughtful messages. Or if you're like me, you can prank your family and put some goofball stuff in there. But it makes the perfect gift right out of the box for any long distance loved ones in your life or the family and friends right down the street. My family and I have these. It's such a joy when either of our families goes on trips or does something different. We can immediately drop it into the frame using their app from a distance, and so they get fresh photos of what we're up to, and same with them. Save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames by using promo code REDWEB at checkout. That's AURA frames.com, promo code REDWEB. This deal is exclusive to listeners, so get yours now in time for the holidays. Terms and conditions apply. But this is where I come back to that foggy memory of the front door. Because to me, if the screen was pulled off this window, then it was open, then they would climb through, yes, they could do it from the back. But to me, I almost think that it was a person that they let in. They knew this person maybe. The crime unfolded, and for whatever reason, out through the back window, they went.
Yeah.
Maybe because they stayed for a while and the sun started to rise and there was people walking around.
So what are we settling on? Because I know this initially was like the door was locked. Then it was like the door is unlocked. So we're settling on the door was unlocked the whole time?
That's just my take. The problem with this case is that we aren't sure.
Yeah, right.
And so there's so many variables here. That's just what makes sense to me as just a guy looking at a house.
Yeah.
But investigators just aren't sure.
Damn. It just, you can't even blame them, right? Like, you're not every time walking to your house or car trying to remember every small detail around you and your surroundings or in your house. So
1,000%.
like, you know, give me the small details of you walking into your house 10 days ago, and then you're not gonna have it.
Son, I don't even know what I ate this morning.
Exactly, dude.
I need to start figuring that out, actually. It's part of the problem. But I mean, I don't know. So that's just my gut check as far as this person coming through, because again, to reiterate, there was no obvious sign of break-in. And when this has happened in the past, a lot of the thinking around that is that it might imply a potential relationship, that someone was allowed into the home. And the reason why I then think the exit was through the back window on the second floor was because of some witnesses. So some sources state that lights in the house were already on when Haruko arrived at the scene. But there was a newspaper delivery person who was interviewed, and they said while they were there in the early morning hours delivering the paper that the lights were off. In fact, there was another passerby just going on a walk down the street, and they reaffirmed that the house lights were off. So again, this is another one of those foggy memories that only, I like to say, muddies the water.
Yeah, that's wild that they remember that. That's
I know. I mean, I would not at all.
That's wild. But do people did they confirm it? I mean, I hope it's not like a placebo thing where it's like, oh, this person confirmed it. I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'm pretty sure I saw that too.
Right. Or if you were asked, hey, did you remember the lights being on in that house? And suddenly your brain creates a memory.
Yes.
But you're not aware of creating it. You're just confident because that's my memory. That's real.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's the tough part.
So this is where I noted in my notes here that this, combined with Haruko's memory on the front door being locked or not, is the foundation creating a lot of uncertainty on this case, despite the mountain of evidence left behind. Now, another interesting point, because they did scrub this house for fingerprints, and they did get some. There were no fingerprints found on the doorbell intercom, and so that doesn't rule out knocking on the door, but I wanted to put it out there anyway. Now, regarding the search for blood on the door and the window, right? I want to come all the way back to that, because investigators said, well, they definitely didn't leave through the front door because there's no blood on it. That doesn't feel like a confident statement you can make. Well, the reason why they were able to make such a confident statement is because the culprit left such a bloody mess behind that wherever they went, they would have indicated their movements by footprints, fingerprints, DNA found in the house. They basically would have trailed blood wherever they went. I believe Jillian said that at some point they were dripping, which is how messy it was.
Oh my God.
And so unless they really cleaned up before leaving, I don't think you can get out the front door without a drop behind. And that's kind of what the investigators are saying. But again, the window also didn't have any blood.
I was just about to point out, like, the window didn't have blood. So, like, they must have cleaned up. But then there'd be some DNA or some, like, blood stains or whatever in the sink, unless they were super, like, I don't know, though. I wouldn't think they'd be super, like, bleach the place or whatever, the sink or whatnot, because, they kind of hung out in there eating, left the poop dirt in the toilet. Like, it doesn't add up. It doesn't match.
Yeah. I know they found DNA in the bathtub at some point, and so maybe this is some sort of weird way to try to hide their tracks. Maybe the guy took a bath, washed all this blood off, rinsed out the tub, filled it up, threw documents in it to be like, no, this was a thing that I did with the documents. Has nothing to do with cleaning myself off. Again, we have no idea what they did in the hours following this crime, but we know that they were hanging out, macking on ice cream, and likely cleaning up. It's so weird.
To be that comfortable, man, it's like another level of being a sicko, to be honest.
Right. Surrounded by your crime, guiltless. Now, this is a certain type of sicko for sure. But like I said, footprints found inside because of the blood, fingerprints all around the walls and things on the drawers, touching a lot of stuff, and DNA, not only from the feces, but they did find some blood in the area, so they believe maybe a scuffle went down. I think some DNA was also found on the clothes. But to come back to it as well, DNA analysis, especially at the turn of the century, very much a tool, an asset that has overturned many cases in recent history. But looking specifically at Tokyo police, they had to rely on fingerprints because they didn't have access to the DNA analysis, the DNA database that they have now today.
Right.
And so they're looking around at all these fingerprints. They scan them against their database. They don't find a single match. And we'll talk a little bit in a second about what they did because of that. But yeah, a lot of this information, I just want to say, for the sake of transparency, is reported from the Asahi Weekly. And that's where we know that blood was found in the bathtub as well.
I feel like, man, just like store that,
Yeah. Especially since, DNA is a thing. We talk a little bit about mitochondrial and blood type analysis later on, but it's not nearly as definitive as this is your DNA.
Yeah. And that's the thing we talked about, right? Like, way back, like the further back you go, the easier it was to commit a crime like this, a heinous one, and then just disappear. Nowadays, there's cameras, there's GPS satellite tracking, advanced DNA database and tools, so it's a lot more difficult.
Right. Everyone's got a doorbell cam.
Right.
Your cell phone's gonna track you wherever you go.
Like, just to be right on the cusp is like so unfortunate.
Now, before we talk about the police canvassing for fingerprints, it is worth mentioning that there was no blood found on the son, the young boy Ray, so some investigators believe that he might have been the first victim that night. Now, when looking at the database, like I said, they found no positives for the fingerprints, and so investigators initiated what they called a roller operation, where they went door to door in the neighborhood gathering fingerprints. They did not find a match, but according to the Mainichi Shimbun, police neglected other aspects of the case, such as interviewing suspects, because they were so focused on the fingerprints. And I don't fully blame them, honestly. If you have definitive fingerprints and you're like, as soon as we get a match, we get the person, but the fact that they forgot to ask some of these details, what people saw. Did you see this person wearing this kind of outfit like we talked about in image A? That does create, again, more of that fog.
Yeah, I mean, if you got fingerprints, that seems like something that would be, I don't know, smoking gun, technology. Interviewing people is great. It's definitely a part of you should do it. It's part of the process, but I just feel like, got fingerprint samples, follow that. That's a stronger lead.
Yeah. Now, the last thing I want to say when it comes to the blood, investigators used this blood not for the DNA, but like I said, to analyze the blood type. This is how they were able to figure out that it wasn't one of the family members because it was a type that stood out different from the family. It was type A. Now, from this, they inferred that it was likely one killer, though it's hard to say. Maybe there was two people with the same type A blood, but either way, this is what investigators landed on. Now, this is where we start to move into that new school world of evidence, where we move past the tangible and into the digital. And I think that this is such a fascinating, yet continuously creepy element to this whole case, because it only asks more questions. So, when investigating further, police found that Mikio's computer had connected to the internet at 1:18 a.m. and stayed on for roughly 5 minutes. So whoever this was activating this computer visited several websites, including Mikio's company website, the website for the Shiki Theater, various different university lab websites, and the website for the government entity known as the Science and Technology Agency.
That makes this case even weirder, man. Not like bank accounts or school stuff, government stuff.
5 minutes too.
For 5 minutes. And this goes back to the whole thing of the money that was taken, if I remember correctly, was the tuition that had to do with the tuition in school.
Yasuko ran a kind of cram school, and these were the fees that she had collected.
Right.
And so it seemed that a lot of the money stolen was from that savings specifically.
Well, see, now it just seems like it's someone that attended.
See, that's what my brain wants to say.
It's so precise. I don't know. Anything is possible, and this could be someone that just is highly knowledgeable and has a lot of insight and is trying to leave a false trail. But boy, is it a strong trail.
It's a very, very strong trail. And 5 minutes, Mikio's company website, the husband, the victim's company website, but then a website for the Shiki Theater, but then some labs, but then the Science and Technology Agency. This person in 5 minutes went all over the place. Now, this is where things get even more interesting. The computer was found yet again to be connected to the internet at 10:30 a.m. according to the Kyoto News. This would have been about 10 minutes prior to Haruko's arrival at the house. Now, as terrifying as that sounds, the Daily Yomiuri later reported in 2014 that investigators re-examined the computer and found that this connection was simply Haruko accidentally moving the mouse since it was found at the scene of the crime hanging off the desk. But for 14 years, it seemed that we had another blip on the radar, that it seemed like this person stayed until 10:30 a.m. just before the grandmother showed up. But it was actually, when she was looking around the place, she bumped the mouse, it woke the computer up, and therefore it connected to the internet. And this does reaffirm her time estimate. She said it was about 10:40. It was actually more around 10:30 per the computer's connection. But it really, once again, adds to this. It just shows how easily contaminated the crime scene can be, even if you mean well. Even if you're an individual walking through the scene and you're trying not to touch anything, just bumping a mouse can completely change the profile of the scene and the criminal.
Right, especially because they were just okay, we know that was moved and that was the time. And it's just yeah, I mean, if I come home and my stuff is a little all over the place, and I'm not gonna leave my mouse down. I'm a neat person. I'm not gonna leave my mouse dangling. I'm gonna put it back on the desk and then keep going about my time.
I just think it's so fascinating because it left us then for at least a few years where investigators assumed that the killer stayed overnight because of this second internet connection, that they woke up, did a little bit of Googling, and then Haruko called or was coming over, and that's when they skedaddled. But
not the case.
Yeah, but after Haruko comes over and they realize, no, it was her bumping the computer, now it completely opens the window. We have no idea how long they stayed, when they left, or what else they did in the house. It just completely changes things.
I get it now when they talk about, this is such a severe example. But I get it when they're no one go in there. like anything any little thing you do could like completely drastically change evidence, timelines, etc. Like that's so wild.
You can change someone's educated guesses, assumptions.
Yeah. And then we go back to the one mystery that we covered where the whole neighborhood was walking through the damn house.
Taking pieces of bones.
Oh my God, I forgot they did that too.
Yeah.
Insane that that's a thing that happened. Wild.
Yeah.
Like it's an amusement park, like it's a haunted house or something like that. It's like, boy, that is the most contaminated crime scene you could ever come across.
You quickly dissociated from your neighbors and made them props real quick.
Yeah, surprisingly, terrifyingly quick.
Yeah, no, it's again, it's just one of those things that I don't know. You see it in movies like, oh, no, I'll be fine. Cross the lines. The main character is going to investigate. And I'm like, no, I get it now. You know, you bump a fly and you have, a butterfly, and you got the butterfly effect, right?
Yeah. Yeah. When they're yelling in movies or whatever, and just like, whoa, come on, man. And then it's like, well, actually, it is that serious. So,
yeah. So now we've covered most of the evidence, most of the discovery. We're moving into the later stages of the investigation. And in building a description for this suspect, investigators use the clothes, which I think is super wise. And I also think is wildly fascinating.
yeah.
So the fanny pack was used to determine the killer's waist size, and that was somewhere between 70 and 75 centimeters. The raglan sweater was found to be one of only 120 produced and sold at 41 stores within 4 prefectures, but investigators have only identified 12 of the buyers. So listen, I know we're not in the business of giving these criminals advice, but if you're going to be out here doing something heinous, maybe you don't get the limited edition Supreme hoodie and go trouncing through the crime scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then leave it.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. Definitely not the move or the play. Not that we're giving you guys any advice whatsoever, but yeah, it's damn.
120 made.
So much evidence, but just like no dice, no cigar.
Yeah. And listen, Task Force, we very lawfully sew microscopic trackers into the very fabric of the fine threads of the Red Web merch. And so if you take this advice and do ne'er-do-well things, you'll be caught. This is where I legally have to say that isn't true, but who's to say?
But check your other pieces of clothing.
Ooh,
not from us.
Right. It migrates.
It migrates.
Like a worm.
That's a wild piece of technology. Holy we got that?
Well, we've been inventing all sorts of stuff.
Yeah, we got the kind of tech.
We got computers that walk. We got aliens that got them thighs. We got worms that track.
Okay, let's go back to the alien thighs, though.
Listen, I just re-listened to that episode the other day. Okay. Task Force was loving my little daydream about these thicked up aliens.
Thicked up aliens, man. You know why? Because I'm telling you, Task Force is some freaks as well. I'm just saying.
I'm living large so you can live vicariously, but I know you want it too.
You know what I mean? They would buckle at the sight.
At the sight. I'm just saying what we're all 100% thinking, Christian. Now, how do I dive back into this? This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Rocket Money. Rocket Money saved me so much hassle this year because it found all the unwanted subscriptions that I had forgotten about. I've talked about this many times, but I love that they get to highlight those for me, and then with the tap of the screen, they'll cancel them for me. It's a huge game changer, especially if you're looking to up your budgeting game. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel your unwanted subscriptions. They monitor your spending and help you lower your bills so you can grow your savings. It's simple. Rocket Money shows you all the subscriptions in one place so you can cancel the ones you don't use. Their dashboard tracks your spending trends and alerts you to price increases or unusual activity, all the good stuff. Plus, their goals feature makes saving for the big expenses in your life, whatever you might be saving for, automatic and effortless. Rocket Money has over 5 million users and has saved a total of $500 million in canceled subscriptions, saving members up to $740 a year when using all of the app's premium features. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Go to rocketmoney.com/redweb today. That's rocketmoney.com/redweb. rocketmoney.com/redweb. This episode of Red Web is sponsored by Shopify. When you think about businesses with criminally good sales, I get it, Red Web, like Death Wish Coffee or Selena Gomez's Rare Beauty, you can't overlook the business behind the business, right? Making it all run, making it all come together. For millions of businesses, that entity, that hand on the shoulder, that's Shopify. Shopify is the home to the #1 checkout on the planet. With Shop Pay, businesses can boost conversations by up to 50%, turning abandoned carts into... Yeah, you see? You like that sound? And if you're serious about growing, Shopify lets you sell anywhere. On the web, in-store, at your parents' house, or right from your customers' feeds. No matter where your customers are, businesses that sell more, they sell on Shopify. That's right. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Death Wish Coffee and Rare Beauty use. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/redweb. All lowercase, that's shopify.com/redweb. Okay, coming back to the unfortunate crime scene, and further analysis of the injuries seems to indicate that, again, this must have been some level of crime of passion. It appeared that Yasuko and Nina specifically suffered the most wounds, and some of them seem to be even after death, which paints a picture of aggression, high level of emotion. Former Seijio Police Chief Takeshi Tsuchida told ABC News Australia, quote, "He slashed them from above the chest to the face as if he tormented them," end quote.
Oh my God. Yeah, we didn't really go into detail about like how.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Right. So we know very vividly that this has a peculiar person, some peculiar habits left behind, but now we know more vividly maybe the emotions, the emotional footprint of this crime.
Yeah.
Definitely a lot. I mean, to reiterate, as tough as it is to say, we have 2 small children here as victims, and so you can't understate the level of violence,
right,
and anger coming out of this person.
Yes, and to be able to do that to children, it's you're going up there in terms of levels of sadistic sickness.
Oh yeah. Now we talked about the phone lines as well, and Haruko remembers calling and the phone not being answered. Some sources claim that the phone was dead. Now this is where I come back to some of those sources. They claimed that the phone lines were cut, but Nicholas Obregon, who created the podcast Faceless, all about this specific case, claimed that this was incorrect based on his interviews with the victim's family. In fact, he went so far as to comment under one of the Japan Today articles, and he pointed out the many incorrect details that have been circulating in the news around this case. So I find it fascinating that somebody is coming in, doing some investigative journalism, but also calling out some of the inconsistencies, some of the incorrect facts, so to speak, just these details that are wrong, again, only clouding the truth and allowing this person accidentally, perhaps, to get away.
Yeah, dude, it's just so far gone. It's just so many things, so many unfortunate things, regardless of how much evidence has been left behind, that just muddy the water. Mm-hmm. And at times, at the essence, how do you bring any of this back? You know, I mean, obviously we know that you don't, but just how?
Yeah, it's unfortunately what happens when, you know, you have some people writing articles because they want to help. And it's one of the reasons why we try to focus on cases that are a little bit older. You know, around this year, around 2000, is when we kind of stop looking so much at cases unless they have been cold for quite some time, because we don't want to be part of the chain of misinformation, right, accidentally disseminating wrong details.
Yeah.
You know, because if there is an active investigation, the last thing I want to do is spread that stuff. So you have a lot of people trying to help, trying to spread awareness. And then cynically, I bet a lot of these articles are just trying to get clicks, you know, just trying to get some ad revenue on their article being read. And so they don't necessarily care if the details are right or wrong. And that also sucks.
Yeah, which is unfortunate, but that's just the way, that's the world, man.
That's the world.
People are terrible. As many as there are amazing people, there's just a lot of terrible people as well.
Yeah. But again, that's why when sources disagree, I always try to highlight that, because we just want to collate the information. We don't know which is true. And so it's worth being very candid about things that are inconsistent, things that might be wrong, things that are definitely hearsay. But with that, we're kind of coming to the end of the investigation phase. And I want to move kind of into the suspects and theories. But by this point, police have followed many leads. They've interviewed many potential witnesses. But the killer, as you know, Fredo, has yet to be identified. The police website actually includes an info sheet in both Japanese and English with images related to the case. I believe there's an unlisted YouTube video link that shows you a 3D model of the outside of the home, the park that's nearby, that kind of skate park that's behind it, so you can see a little bit more of the details. And with that, there's also a 20 million yen award for any information that would lead to the culprit's identification. So again, this is active and ongoing. Task Force, show the respect and don't go fumbling around. I know you won't, but I just want to put that out there.
Yep.
It's an active and real case, and so if you have real information is it worth talking to them. But with that, I do want to get into some of the theories, starting with the DNA analysis. In 2005, DNA was found at the scene and was sent to a university for profiling. The university found that the DNA was from someone of both East Asian and European ancestry. As a result, it's possible the killer was half Japanese on his father's side. Now, some believe that the killer must be a foreigner, implying that the half East Asian side of the DNA could be from one of several countries, not just Japan. And this belief also has the foundation rooted in a lot of the evidence left at the scene of the crime. For example, the cologne that was found on the scarf was French, and some sources claim that the shoe size found in all of the footprints inside and out was such a large shoe size that it wasn't available in Japan. Furthering this theory is the sand particles found in the killer's bag. Some were from areas in Japan, but others appeared to be from California in the United States.
What the damn? Oh, God. How much more confusing can the case get?
Yeah, it only gets more confusing the further you analyze it. But to me, this guy's just well-traveled. I mean, you can get custom shoes anywhere.
Yeah.
They seem to have money because they've got a limited 1 of 120 sweatshirt.
Right.
So as much as that seems like it starts to get us closer to something, I feel like it only opens it more.
It completely does, man. You're talking about sand from California.
That's crazy.
Like, it's cool that we could pinpoint that, but also like, man, they could be anyone, anywhere. Like, that's so hard. What a task to try and undertake.
It's true though. Like anytime you travel, if you've taken a bag to a beach any single time, you would know it because anytime you pick that bag up, you've got sand in it for forever.
Oh yeah.
And so if this person's traveling a bunch with that fanny pack, they're picking up sand all over the place. I've got sand from beaches that I've been to for a week. That doesn't mean I was from there.
True.
In fact, all the sand I have is from places I'm not from. I didn't grow up on a beach. But it is interesting. It's fascinating because it opens up some doors, but perhaps too many doors. But this is where Obregon comes back, again, the Faceless podcast. He points out that the DNA results from the 2000s are not necessarily reliable. And he actually left this quote on the aforementioned Japan Today article in 2022, so quite recently. And this is what he said, quote, "Mitochondrial DNA analyzed in the early 2000s simply could not have informed one way or another where his mother was from. If she was born in Portugal, that might be a lead. If it's his great-grandmother that's born in Portugal, that's worth very little. The TMPD have not published this information on the DNA. There's a reason for that. It was leaked by an employee of the university where they were seeking a second opinion. Therefore, the killer's DNA suggests absolutely nothing at this time."
Yeah, you hate to see that. For this person to get away with it is just frustrating.
The dude took a heck of a log, plopped it, and left it.
I know.
Stripped down half his clothes, left it.
Straight up.
Had a midnight snack, Googled around, maybe played some Fortnite or something, and he's living scot-free.
I just, different times, man. You'd not be able to get away with that today.
No. I mean, I wouldn't have thought that you'd get away with it then. But there are two more theories, one more broad than the other. There was an author named Fumiya Ichihashi who proposed that the killer was a former soldier from South Korea with the anonymized name of Mr. R. Supposedly, another anonymous Korean individual, referred to as K, informed Ichihashi about Mr. R. The biggest evidence for this theory seems to stem from the sand and the fingerprints. Some of the sand found in the killer's bag was potentially from South Korea, and Ichihashi claims that the fingerprints and footprints match this Mr. R character. Now, according to Ichihashi, Kei became aware of a large sum of money that the Miyazawa family received from the government as a result of their eviction due to the expansion of the nearby park. Again, there was a park behind their house, and if the government was saying that they had eminent domain, they would have bought the house. They would have probably not had it in cash, but supposedly they had it in cash in the house. And so Kei told Mr. R, and then Mr. R apparently was hired to then kill the family and take this money. However, we don't know who Mr. R is, we don't know who Kei is, and there's no evidence publicly available that corroborates this theory whatsoever. It is a theory that is out there, and it is a theory that's been proposed, but the police did not pursue this so-called lead. As to them, they said it sounded like 100% nonsense.
I mean, it's a theory.
It's definitely just a guy claiming a thing.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. It's a guy kind of just looking at everything going like, hey, this is a story that it could be, but there's nothing to like support that. So.
Right. I mean, if you got fingerprints that match, first of all, I don't know how you as an author got a hold of those fingerprints. I don't know, maybe that's available. But if you have this Mr. R person and you have his fingerprints to match these up with, I think you then owe it to the police to say, here's evidence, right? You can't just be like, nah, I can't give you that.
Yeah, no, you gotta give it up.
Like, what is that? That's so weird.
It's weird. I don't know, man.
Yeah, and not to typecast the person, they are an author, and so a lot of claims of fiction have been levied at them for kind of just making this up. And so, yes, it does feel and sound like nonsense. There's no evidence here, and maybe it was fiction. It's a bit sinister to make fiction up about an actual case happening.
Right.
But yeah, so that's one theory. And the final theory comes back to one that just kind of, it's not an answer, but it keeps feeling like where my heart pulls me. Mm-hmm. And it's that it was a known individual to the family in some way, whether it was a student, like you said, or someone familiar, or I don't know, we'll paint the picture. So the killer's hip bag and jacket had rhodamine on them. This is a fluorescent powder dye. Usually you'll see it in bright magenta, for example, but rhodamine was also found in the Miyazawa's garage of all places. And so police theorized that whoever this killer might have been was someone who had visited the house previously, mostly because of this matched, very unique chemical. Fredo, I don't know, empty your pockets. You got some rhodamine on you?
No, I don't think so.
Right. So beyond the dye, there isn't really any other evidence to reinforce this theory except for some of my familiar gut instincts, right? Looking at past cases, looking at the lack of break-in, looking at the level of comfort. These are assumptions, right?
Yeah.
But the clothes left behind, and this is continuing some assumptions here, were mostly available to the nearby neighborhood of Okikubo. So it's possible that they were a local, or that at the very least they saw the Miyazawa family in that area. So maybe not specifically familiar, like name to name, but at least passively familiar in some way. Now, there's an alternative sub-theory within this category that says that the killer may have been one of the skateboarders that visited the park behind the house. Apparently, Mikio grew frustrated with the noise that the park generated and argued with the skaters, saying maybe you're skateboarding too late, like, I don't know, maybe there was a kerfuffle is kind of how the theory goes. The clothes left behind do seem to be in that skater fashion for that time period, but it is strange for the young person to kill an entire family over such a small feud.
Yeah, let's just start with that. I was like, look, man, yeah, sure, you might piss off some skaters, but they're going to vandalize quicker than they are going to, like, murder an entire family and hang out inside.
Right. You're going to find eggs on your windowsill in the smash variety. You're going to find maybe, at worst, some spray paint on your house, or you're just going to hear more noise is, in my experience, what happens, you know?
Yeah, they're just going to go, we're going to be louder.
Right. Anytime anybody in college, called the police on a noise thing, and I got to peek out my window and be like, what are these lights for? It was just, okay, there's a party, they get quiet, they leave. The party gets louder when they leave. Like, that's all that happens. But yeah, I mean, this was a theory that was proposed, it was thought about, and, the police were there to at least follow it down and, whatever. You don't want to just throw it out the window because you don't believe it. And after a few interviews with local skaters, they believe that they didn't find any evidence or any motive. Obregon actually himself interviewed some of the skaters that Mikio feuded with and couldn't find any reason to believe that this would have angered them enough to want to kill an entire family. And moreover, the family was in an eviction zone to make room for the park expansion. they would only have to deal with the noise for maybe a few more months. And so kind of just wait them out. Don't kill the whole family.
Yeah, that's a big jump.
Yeah.
That's a big jump.
But those are the... God, see... I was hoping we'd get a name. You get somebody that like they have similar peculiar habits, but they have a strong alibi. Or you have a student that was angry with her one day, but they were too tall for that jacket. You know, I was hoping for anything like that. But the fact that the theories are so slim,
So slim.
so unspecific. Oh, God. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of top to bottom the Setagaya Family Murders. Again, one of the largest investigations in Japan's history.
And it just, nothing came up of it. You know what I mean?
No.
Like, sometimes we even have cases where it's like, oh, it's most likely this person, and they died 20 years later.
Right.
It's like, damn it, they lived out their life. That's not how it should be. Damn, dude. Just, if that would not fly today, that person would be caught. Right time, right era to be doing something so bad, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just so locked in on the computer part. It's so fascinating. I mean, that is to me the next frontier of investigations. But if they went to the theater website, if they went to the lab, like, did they buy tickets? What were they doing there?
I don't know, man. It's just weird. There were just so many weird habits within the house.
Yeah.
And then the whole like moving the mouse, which changed the timelines that we're looking at. I was just like, oh man, it's such a crazy little detail that but what are you going to do? But one, hunt for every little detail. And then two, use that as evidence to build this timeline, to build this narrative. And just one little just move the mouse back and it, move the cursor and then the computer woke up. It's like, damn, that's right. Like every little thing you do causes something.
Yeah. It's also wild. I'm thinking about this rhodamine, this weird kind of dye that they had on their person. Mm-hmm. They're looking at these labs, but they're also looking at the Science and Technology Agency. Christian, do you remember what Mikio's job was that they looked at Mikio's company website?
Mikio works for a marketing company.
That's right. Man, it's just so much going on. And I'm almost wondering, did they just sit down, pull up a slew of websites and then put the computer back to sleep and be like, that'll confuse them. I'll poop in the toilet. That'll confuse them. I'll walk out in Mikio's clothes. That'll confuse them. Oh my God, maybe that's what they did.
I mean, yeah, I was about to say, hold on.
But then they're leaving their own stuff behind, riddled with DNA and their weird cologne.
I don't know. I have no idea. No clue. Don't know. It's just weird, man. It's weird.
Would you wear Dracar Noir if I got that for you for Christmas?
Is that it's a fashion, the French cologne?
That's the cologne that this person wore.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I should start wearing a little bit more cologne, Not that I'm a smelly person or anything. I like deodorants and all that, but I don't know. I just don't. I would wear it to go out, but I'm also just I should wear. I should have do people have daily cologne?
I don't know, man. I'm only just, hitting that surface level of where I've got a bunch of small ones that I've sampled. I'm like, these are all really nice, but I don't know. I'm not sitting around in my house spritzing up.
Yeah, that's the thing. Neither am I.
I'm just at home stanking. But listen, if I got you this person's entire outfit and cologne, would you want it?
It's the way you said that at the end there. Would you want it? That makes me go, no.
No, I don't. I'd feel deeply uncomfortable. I also don't know why I'm asking this. This is such a strange question.
Well, it's more so just the drip. What I want, the drip and the look. But when you add the whole, would you want it? That makes me go, why did you break in to police evidence locker and why did you give me the clothes?
You like those shiny white shoes. I can get that. I guess what I'm saying is I know you could pull off that drip, but would you want to look like a culprit? Would you want to, knowing that it's tainted by this person?
I mean, if the person wore it, no. If it's just the drip of someone
that looked like them and smelled like them.
Look, who the heck is going to investigate me for that? That's,
True.
Where were you the night of? I was filming Red Web. You know what I'm saying?
Right. I was 9.
Yeah, I was 9 years old. This is back in what, 2000 or something?
Wait a minute. you grew up with plenty of California sand in them toes.
Oh, I did.
Oh, we got him.
I'll tell you what, though. Yes and no. In San Francisco, you drive up to the beach and then you sit in your
look
car
at it.
because it's cold as all hell, man. And that water
Well,
is
you also
cold
sit in your
all
car
year
because someone will
around.
bash your window in.
Yeah, that too.
I think the first time I was in San Francisco, we were on the beach and I was like, well, I'm not going to come all the way to the Pacific and not touch it. So I went over, stuck a finger in. That was my time in the San Francisco Bay.
Stuck a finger in. I did it.
Yeah,
Done.
it was cold. All right. Well, any last thoughts before we end Red Web for 2024, the Setagaya Family Murders, or any last thoughts in general? I mean, again, the year that we went independent.
Yeah, I mean, look, I can't stress it enough to you, Task Force. Going independent isn't anything that's easy. It's very scary and terrifying. And, this whole Christian, Jillian, Trevor, they've worked very, very hard. And let me tell you, man, like, we are so damn grateful to be able to continue to do this. It's a privilege and an honor to be doing this for you guys.
Yes. Thank you all so much for the continued stability. And being able to leap into the unknown like this was, it was a bit scary and a bit wild, but it is exactly because of you that we're able to do this, supporting us at redwebpod.com, the store, everything, just listening to us. And some people, like I know in the Discord channel, have been sharing about how they're binging old episodes. Again, they're coming out on December, so you can have an official ad-free version of that, but also sharing the podcast with anybody that you think would find the unknown, mysteries, the supernatural, whatever category they like and you want to talk to them with, like just sharing it with them is one of the best ways to support us. So thank you all so much. We hope you have a wonderful holiday season. Hope you all get time away, some safe travels. We'll be away, like I said, for the next 2 weeks. The next 2 Mondays will be all yours. But again, still some stuff dribbling, dropping over at the Patreon. But with all that said, Fredo, I'll see you right back here in 3 Mondays, January 6th, for yet another mystery.